Hi, my name is Tommy, and this is the story of how I became a guard for the magical ministry. Before we start, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the little bell so you can hear all my stories. I was born in a quiet mountain village, a village that nobody knew, where a few wizarding families live in peace. But my dream has always been to live adventures as a guard of the ministry. A guard is in charge of protecting the magical world. They also investigate, fight wars, and do basically anything that requires danger. When I was little, on full moon nights, a pack of werewolves started hunting people in the village, and the ministry sent Peter Walk, one of their guards. And what surprised me is that one single guard was able to clean our whole region of werewolves. From that day, I knew I wanted to be like him. I knew I wanted to be a guard for the ministry. When I turned 16, I asked my parents for permission to register for the tests, and my parents said no. In our family, there has never been a guard. We are farmers. No matter how much you prepare yourself, you will never pass the tests. You'll only get yourself killed. Tommy, you have to stop this absurd idea. Why don't you think of something more suitable? You could, for example, be a collector for the ministry. The tests are not so hard and the work is stable. Besides, we've always been good at everything to do with raw materials. I didn't want to be a collector. A collector is dedicated to looking for ingredients to make potions, but although it's true that they travel and have an active life, they don't transmit the same to me as the guards. As much as I want to, I can't forget what I felt that night. Yes, of course, Mother, don't worry. I'll become a collector. Obviously, I'm not going to be a collector, but they didn't know that. The carriage went through the village the next day and picked up all the applicants for the ministry tests, so my mother thought I was going to be a collector. I was going to tell him later on that I was a guard. Ha! Well, if I passed the tests, of course. The carriage had no one in charge, only the Volans, a kind of horse with wings made of bone that were known to be lethal. It was full of people my age. Most of them had panicked faces. Apparently this year the ministry was going to take a lot of guards, as it was rumored that their ranks were dwindling. At that moment, I couldn't imagine why they had those panicked faces. Then I found out that some wizarding families forced their children to do the guard tests because if they were chosen, the prestige of the family would go up. And if they weren't chosen, they could serve the ministry in another way. For example, collector. Anyway, how boring. All I could think about was how people would admire me when I became a guard. Ha! And how powerful I would become. Stop dreaming, said a girl who was at the back of the carriage. You have the face of a guy who's going to fail the first test. Concentrate and don't be confident. I don't know if you know that most of the people who take the tests don't get to see a new dawn. Ha! But what are you saying? A guard can't be afraid. Besides, I've been practicing advanced magic for years, and I know that I'm capable of overcoming anything. To top it all off, you want to take the guard's exams. Look, I know you didn't ask me, but I'll give you some advice. Don't show up. I looked at her with a face of few friends and I closed my eyes to avoid vomiting as the planes were flying at full speed over the mountains. We've arrived, shouted one of the boys. In the distance, we could see a kind of stadium. I thought we were going to the ministry, but no. The tests are held in the Colosseum, said the girl. It was a black stone Colosseum with the flags of the magical world. It had stone columns carved in the shape of the most important wizards in history. You could hear the screams of the people inside the Colosseum and also some other creatures. Now you're really scared, huh? Your face has changed. Ha! I like it. That can save your life. My name is Kate, and I'm also going to present myself as a guard. I shook her hand and smiled. When I saw her standing up, I thought she was amazing. She was really beautiful, and she looked so confident that it calmed me down a bit. The Volans shouted, and a portal opened through which we crossed. In the distance, we could see more carriages arriving. There were more than I expected. We went through the portal and appeared inside a gigantic room with bars that led to the inside of the Colosseum. Suddenly, there was a voice in our heads, and the hall went dark. Hello, I am Archie Craig, leader of the Ministry's Guard and in charge of conducting these tests. Those of you who will be reporting for guards stand on one side of the room, and those of you who will not, on the other. Remember to sign the document that is just outside the entrance to the Colosseum. You are now over 16, so the ministry will not be responsible for your safety. Know that once you cross the Colosseum gate, the danger is imminent." The light returned to the hall and nothing could be heard. Everyone was silent. Many were looking at the floor while you could see them trembling with fear. The first to line up for the guard testing was Kate, and I followed her. The rest started to line up, and we quickly realized that the guard line was much smaller compared to the other one. There were also wizards who were not in either of the two rows. I assumed that fear had paralyzed them, and they were not going to participate in the tests. On the one hand, I understood them. Many of these wizards came from wealthy families, and they didn't need to. It was more out of obligation that they were there. One by one, we approached the document to sign it, to which one of the boys said out loud, "Wow, the text changes depending on the person." Apparently, the text you signed changed depending on the person who was going to sign it. When it was my turn, the text read as follows: "I, Tommy Burke, renounce my past life, renounce personal ambition, renounce fear, and become a weapon and shield of ministry. My life no longer belongs to me. I am now only a servant of the ministry, and therefore a servant of the magical world." When I read the text, I hesitated to sign it. I didn't want to give up everything I had been up to that moment, but Kate told me, "Sign or leave. The guards can't hesitate." So I signed. So, this is the beginning of my story. If you want to know what happened at the end, don't forget to subscribe and activate the little bell. Thanks, and see you next time. And share it with your friends.